Hi, in this third and final video, we're going to look at the point of progress made by Weston on page 29. We're going to start with a conversation. That's what this whole thing is about. On page 28, Ransom is arguing with Weston. He's trying to figure out why he's woken up. They're in the spaceship. Okay, they're in the rocket. They're headed toward Malacandra, which you'll find out later is Mars. And the conversation that they're having, Ransom's trying to figure out, number one, where they're going, and secondly, why they're going there. And you got to remember that Ransom himself is kind of like C.S. Lewis in this sense, because he didn't know where he was going in that war. He didn't know why he was doing it. He was just told to do it. He was kind of forced to do it. You see here that Ransom gets angry and he says, "What does this have to do with me? You have assaulted me, drugged me, and are apparently carrying me off on this as a prisoner on this infernal thing. What have I done to you? What do you say for yourself?" And how Weston replies to him is very idealistic. This is where you get your point of progress. Weston's kind of looking at him going, he says later on down here, he says, "You're insufferably narrow and individualistic, the way that you think." And this is why he says it. Weston says, "I might reply by asking you why you crept into my backyard like a thief. So obviously you were curious. You were willing to invade my space." It says, "If you had minded your own business, you would not be here." Okay, so think about that in terms of the war too. As it is, I admit that we have had to infringe on your rights. And we know this because he took the place of the young man who was being forced to in the beginning, forced to go on the spaceship. And this is what Weston says, "My only defense," okay, this is his argument, "my only defense is that small claims must give way to great. So the ends justify the means." Okay, if we are going for a great cause, if we are doing this thing for the betterment of ourselves and the betterment of humanity, then who cares? He says, "As far as we know, we are doing what has never been done in the history of man, perhaps never in the history of the universe. We have learned how to jump off the speck of matter on which our species began. Infinity, and therefore perhaps eternity, is being put into the hands of the human race." Okay, so he's now believing that they are godlike. I put God complex next to this, you'll see. He's now believing that they are the master race. And remember again that this book was written in 1938. So Lewis, having been in World War I, is now watching World War II about to happen. Because 1939 is when they entered, the British. Says Weston says, "You cannot be so small-minded as to think that the rights or the life of an individual or of a million individuals are of the slightest importance in comparison with this." And by this, he's meaning progress. So, let's look at this. Weston says, "You keep on asking me questions I can't answer. In some cases because I don't know the answers, in others because you wouldn't understand them. It will make things very much pleasanter during the voyage if you could only resign your mind to your fate and stop bothering yourself and us. Stop trying to figure this out. It would be easier if your philosophy of life were not so insufferably narrow and individualistic." So in other words, if you weren't so self-centered and narrow-minded, only believing the way you want to believe and not seeing others' side of it. Okay, Ransom says this. Well, actually, let's hold on for a second. Let me read the rest of this. It says, I had thought no one could fail to be inspired by the role you were being asked to play. Even a worm, if it could understand, would rise to the sacrifice." Now, Ransom says, "Well, you hold all the cards and I must make the best of it. I consider your philosophy of life raving lunacy. I suppose all that suffering about infinity and eternity means that you think you are justified in doing anything, absolutely anything, here and now, on the off chance that some creatures or other descended from man as we know him may crawl about a